For our final talk of the session, we'll have the Julia developer results, the results of the Julia developer survey by Andrew Claster. Could you please come and set up, please?
Great, thanks very much. So this is these are the results of the 5th annual Julia user and developer survey. So first, thanks to everyone who participated in this year's survey. There were over 1,300 people who responded. Thanks also to Sanjeev Dasgupta, who programmed the survey in Jot form, to Roger Luo, who translated the survey into GitHub, and thanks also to all of our translators who helped translate the survey into 6 languages, and to everyone who helped publicize the survey and encourage people to respond. So as in previous years, we recruit respondents into the survey using all the platforms available to us. This year, Korean was available for the first time, so we expanded to 6 languages. In the survey, you'll see that many of the questions were repeated year after year. So if you see data for previous years, that means that the same question was asked or a similar question was asked in the same way. If you only see responses for 1 year or 2 years, that means that that survey question was introduced later, or that that question was changed significantly so that the old data for comparison purposes no longer applies. So one of the questions we've been asking for the last 2 years is, which of the following languages have you used regularly or frequently during the past year? We've seen an increase for Julia, so among Julia users and developers who participate in the survey, more people are using Julia more. So what we're finding is they're using other languages less and Julia more, with perhaps the exception of Rust, and we'll see this on a bigger, we'll see this change slightly larger on the next slide. So we asked people, which of the and you can see the exact question wording just under the black line. Which of the following languages have you used regularly or frequently during the past year? And then we also asked, which do you plan to use regularly or frequently during the next year? So here we see a pretty significant increase for Rust. So still at a relatively low level, but up significantly among Julia users and developers. But again, Julia continuing to grow. So as the package environment develops, as the language itself advances and includes more options, we're seeing more and more Julia users using more Julia, less Python, and less of other languages. We asked, how much do you like each of the following languages? So we're seeing an increase in the percentage who say that Julia is one of their favorite languages, up to 80%, the highest we've ever seen. And we're seeing a continuing decline for Python. We ask, thinking only about the technical aspects or features of Julia, which are the technical aspects or features you like most about Julia? Number 1 continues to be speed and performance, followed by ease of use. Open source code is available and can be modified. Package manager, multiple dispatch solves the 2-language problem, composable, etc. You can see at the bottom some of these answer choices were added later. The biggest increase this year is for package manager, and where you see a big change, such as again, that's often because of the other changes in the answer choices. So. Most popular non-technical features of Julia. Number 1, it's free. You don't have to pay for it. Number 2, the Julia community of developers is talented and active. The community of developers is warm and welcoming, easy to create packages, and so on. The biggest technical problems with Julia. Number 1, cannot generate self-contained binaries or libraries. Number 2, slow compile times, for example, too long to generate the first plot. Then confusing or overly verbose error messages. That was an addition to the survey this year. I require packages, libraries, or tools that are only available or are more complete in another language. The debugger is too slow and or not fully featured. Poor linter, poor syntax checking, no built-in support for interfaces, is a new one this year as well. And then slow garbage collection was added this year as well. See that further down. The biggest non-technical problem is adoption. There are not enough Julia users in my field or industry. The reason for this big jump is that we eliminated another answer choice that was very similar to that. So online tutorials and documentation are outdated. We changed that to say, or insufficient this year. My company, university, clients, or other organizations I work with do not allow or support Julia. And those are the top reasons. Reasons for choosing Julia. Number one, seems like the language of the future. Number two, elegance. Number three, faster for the work I am doing. Julia solves the two-language problem. The top responses. Where do you interact with the Julia community? GitHub, number one, Discourse, and Slack, followed by YouTube and Stack Overflow. Which of the following best describe your use of Julia? Number one is research. Number two is hobby programming. Then individual work, followed by work as part of a team, which has been increasing. And hobby programming has been declining. Which of the following types of packages have you created or contributed to? So about 40% have created or contributed to open source packages that are registered in the Julia General Registry. About a third in open source packages not registered in the Julia Registry, and about 44% private and not registered in a private registry. So again, you can see in 2022, these were two separate questions, created and contributed to. In 2023, we made it created or contributed to. So that accounts for some of that big difference between the orange bars and the other bars in the latter two sets of columns. Among those who said that they are creators or contributors to open source packages, in which of the following capacities do you contribute to Julia? Number one, completely voluntary. Number two, write Julia as a component of other paid work, such as research for academics. And then among the same audience, that is people who create or contribute to open source packages, how many volunteer hours do you spend working on open source Julia projects or the Julia community per week? The largest number say 1 to 10 hours per week. When did you start using Julia? So the largest number started in the last 5 years. What percentage of the programming work you do is in Julia? So we're seeing an increase in the percentage who say 80 to 100%. And a decrease in the percentage who say below 40%. How robust is the current Julia package ecosystem? We're seeing an increase in the percentage who say very or somewhat, and a decrease in the percentage who say not very. Which editors or IDEs do you use frequently? Number one is VS Code, and then followed by Jupyter, Pluto, and so on. What types of AI assistants do you use frequently with Julia? This is a new question this year. So number one is ChatGPT, followed by GitHub Copilot. 68% say none of the above. What cloud solutions, if any, do you use together with Julia? More than half say none. Among those who do, local cluster, followed by AWS. Julia Hub, we're seeing an increase. Other cloud providers, bit of a decline in Google. How helpful and collaborative is the Julia community? So we're seeing a steady increase over time in the percentage who say very helpful. And then, have you attended or do you plan to attend JuliaCon? Large percentage of respondents have attended at least one conference in the last 3 years. And many say that either they will likely attend in the future or would like to attend, funding, scheduling, and location permitting. How did you download and install Julia? The largest number say binaries from julialang.org, about 2/3, followed by Julia Up, which has increased significantly since last year. With which operating systems do you use Julia? Number 1, Linux x86, followed by Windows, Mac OS. Which kind of parallelism, if any, do you use together with Julia? Number 1 is Julia multithreading, 59%, followed by GPU computing, 25%, Julia distributed computing, tasks, coroutines. Yep, we'll do. So all of this will be available online. In the meantime, resources you found most useful: Julia Manual, we've seen an increase. JuliaCon presentations is number 2. Which of the following do you use? First, data science, modeling and simulation, statistics. Among participants, nearly half are professionals, and participants can be both academics and professionals. We added hobbyist as an option this year. Among academics, most are graduate or postgraduate students or researchers. Among professionals, the largest number are engineers or developers. Most common industries among professionals: software and IT, engineering, followed by finance, life sciences, etc. Among academics, number 1, computer science, mathematics, physics. But even at the bottom, we've got folks in sociology and political science using Julia. New question this year: what type of improvements to Julia would make you more likely to recommend Julia to others? Number 1 is reduced startup time, years of coding experience, age, and then we have some demographic data. So more than 75 countries and regions, languages, ethnicity, gender. So quite a bit on diversity. Again, this will be posted online, and please contact me with any questions. Thanks.